Today we've got a great malicious compliance story all about trying to be in 3 places at once. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, don't want to reimburse me? Okay. I work as a breakfast cook for the largest hotel chain in the world at a 4-star single-lettered hotel in the largest French-speaking province in Canada. Each cook is given a stipend of $200 to buy personal equipment, peelers, rasps, knives, etc. I bought a 7-inch non-stick ceramic frying pan for myself. They have 7-inch Teflon pans here already, but due to people not taking care of them, they're mostly scratched. It is worth noting that our current chef was brought in to lower the costs of the kitchen, so our quality of food has gone down drastically. During the holiday break while I was off, they bought new egg pans, but they were 8 inches instead of our traditional 7. When I filed my receipt, I was told by HR that the pan I bought wouldn't be reimbursed. I paid $35 for it. They told me that the hotel is supposed to cover the cost of the pans. So, too bad, so sad. Okay, fine then. I will use your larger pans for omelets. Now, our omelets are too big for the plates, and I have to use more inventory to make the omelets look like we aren't skimping on our product. Good thing you guys wouldn't pay me back for the pan that costs half the price of what you bought the new pans for at a larger size and cost. And now, I have a nice egg pan for at home. Whenever, whatever. So, as somebody that is unfamiliar with how a professional kitchen like this works, is it the chef's responsibility to decide, yeah, we need new stuff, and is like putting the order in for those? Basically what I'm asking is, this newer, lower cost chef, were they the sole reason that they got these 8-inch pans when everything else is designed for a 7-inch omelet? I just want to know what genius it was that was the catalyst that put it in that direction. Strange Marzipan 9641 commented, I know it won't go over easy, but you should let HR know it all boils down to this. The new chef isn't all he's cracked up to be. I'll see myself out. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of malicious compliance, want to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next story is, Bet You're Sorry Now. Many years ago, after decades of saving, my husband and I were doing well enough to finally build our dream home. After we moved in, we still had to have our yard leveled and sodded and arranged it early the next spring. That night, I was out watering the backyard sod when I saw my neighbor's wife, Chris, using a measuring tape between our homes. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said that we had sodded a section of their yard. I told her that we had followed the sticks the builder had left. She said the builders must have screwed up and rudely insisted that we had stolen part of their yard. Not wanting to have an ongoing beef with her and her husband Keith, we agreed to have our property resurveyed. When we did, we got one heck of a surprise. The actual property line wasn't halfway between our 2 houses, as we believed. It was about 1.5 feet away from the side of their house. They owned a construction company and had built their house too close to the property line. This was an insane mistake for a professional. Still wanting to be good neighbors, we offered to split the cost and labor of a good neighbor fence using one of the 4 accepted fence styles allowed. My husband kept asking Keith when he wanted to start, but he always had one excuse after another. Then, Keith rudely told Dan to stop bothering him. Dan was furious. He bought all the materials and built the fence himself. He'd been planning to put the fence halfway between our houses, but our neighbor was so rude that Dan built the fence just inside of our property line, making the neighbor's house look terrible. The neighbor's husband came over ticked as heck, but Dan reminded him that he and his wife wanted a new property survey, and he had put the fence off for months. Our fence was magnificent because Dan was a carpenter and I'm a great painter. The neighbor's husband built a fence next to ours, but it was ugly, badly built, and not one of the approved designs. He was forced to tear it down later. If they own a construction company and they built the house themselves, it had to be intentional that they built it that close to the property line, no? I mean, I'm no conspiracy theorist or anything, but you could convince me that that was the case there. Dr. Hugh commented, it would be worth giving the survey to the local permitting board. They may have violated setback limits. In that case, their whole house might have to be torn down. OP replied, they sold the house and moved after their construction company closed down. I think all involved parties just chose to ignore the issue, but at some point it'll need to be addressed. We probably would have consented to selling part of our property to them had they asked and paid to move the fence. Our next story is, so you want to know everything I do in a day? Fine. This happened some 15 years ago, but a recent post on here reminded me. I once worked in a municipal archive as an employee of a contractor company. As in, the city contracted the firm, and they contracted me and a few other people to do the work. We had an abandoned cinema full of pallets, each with a mountain of file boxes we had to index and catalog, since the archive had been unattended for something like 30 years. Of course, they gave us the crappiest contract they legally could and paid us literal peanuts for a high qualification job with legal responsibility, but I was young and needed the money. So our bosses got paid per job, but we got paid monthly. They wanted the job done as quickly as possible so they could take another one and started pressuring us to do a sloppy job in order to finish quickly. They were in a different city, and their latest idea was to call us on the phone every 2 minutes before our time to go to ask what we had done that day and pressure us. The calls would go on for maybe half an hour, making us late. We were in a remote town with horrible transport connections and we didn't drive, so if we didn't go out on time, we'll have to wait hours for the next bus, plus an hour and a half bus ride home. I guess the idea was to punish us and hope we'll go quicker so they won't need to extend the call to pressure us, but they didn't want to admit to, I guess they legally couldn't, so they just said they needed to be updated daily. Cue malicious compliance. After the second time they pulled that crap, I started spending at least the half an hour of every workday pulling together a very tediously detailed written report of everything we did that day and emailing it to them at precisely my clockout hour. Then, when they called, I said, "Don't worry, you have the daily update in your inbox. It took me half an hour. Now it's my time to go home. Bye," and hung up. Of course, work got delayed by at least half an hour each day, but what could they do? I was strictly complying with their request for information, in writing, and with every little detail so they don't need to remember. And legally, in Spain, they couldn't fire us without justification unless they canceled the project within the city. They did call me back for a different project, but when they realized I wouldn't stand for other crap they tried to pull, they actually canceled the project and let me go. They had the gall to still promise to call me for another one soon. Honestly, in my book, a lot of kudos to OP because when you're saying you're getting paid literally peanuts to do this job that seems like quite a bit of work, I think a lot of times for a lot of people, regardless of the fact that they're pushing you to do a quick, sloppy, inefficient job, people might have a tendency to do so anyways because that's just the pay they're getting. I can tell and really admire that OP really does give a crap about trying to make sure they do the best job possible. Nope, thank you commented, "This is right on brand for wretched contract companies. I worked a horrible gig like this once in New Orleans. Contract company with the word library and associates in it. We were paid so little money with so much micromanaging, brilliantly smart people being paid literal peanuts to archive material and catalog material for Tulane University after Hurricane Katrina/Gustav. There was so much material to process that we used 2 warehouses to work in, and the management wouldn't let us use messaging or walkie-talkies, so we had to run the length of 2 warehouses to ask a simple question. I was lucky that I was able to bail after a few months, but they abused so many people and had made so much money on that contract. I'm still salty about it 20 years later. Our next story is, no, the stock take must agree with the system. Look again. Years ago, I worked for an office supplies chain store. It was an okay job for a student on the weekend. The store manager would occasionally ask us to do a stock take. It involved going around with a hand scanner and making sure that what we had in the store agreed with what the computer system said we did. Unfortunately, we had a lot of theft in the store, and so frequently there were missing items. Lots of them. The IT system was also a complete mess, so we would frequently find items that the system said we didn't have. The store manager was of the firm belief that there was no theft and that the stock system was completely infallible. If you went up to him and said, "Hey store manager, the system reckons we've got 37 of these 19-inch CRT monitors. I found 3. I think there's an issue," he would brush it off and say we weren't looking hard enough and that we're not leaving the store until the hand scanner agrees with the stock system. Cue malicious compliance. We would scan the same monitor multiple times until we had 37 of them. If we found something that the stock system said we didn't have, it either got hidden behind the stacks of office paper, on top of one of the offices, or more frequently, it would end up inside the paper and card compactor. We made sure that the hand scanners would always agree with the stock system, and we got to leave the store on time. A few years later, I found out that the store manager had been fired by the company because they did an external audit of the store and found a stock system that said there were thousands of items that weren't there and that the stock takes must have been falsified. You know, I don't even think it was necessarily the fact that this manager did all of these stock takes and whatnot that made them such a terrible manager. It's the fact that it got to the point where there's thousands of items that just aren't in the store and they never even caught that. I think it is seriously impressive that they're that hands-on of a manager that they're always like, okay guys, we've got to take stock takes, but then proceed to believe wholeheartedly that you have thousands of items in stock that just clearly aren't there. Algae888 commented, my buddy worked at a bar and banquet hall. If they were short the end of the night, they got chewed out. If they were over, no problem. The on-site manager solved the problem by basically skimming the take if it was over and putting in the extra when they were short. The thing is, being over is way more common than being short, so every once in a while there was an unofficial party to celebrate their success funded by the slush fund. Our next story is, sometimes it's not really smart to be safe. I used to work in the oil field, and safety is actually enforced a lot, but sometimes people are too zealous. We were working in South Texas near the border. In the summer, it's 100 degrees plus Fahrenheit with raging humidity. Heat index can hit 110 plus degrees. You had to wear flame-resistant gear, pants, and long-sleeve shirts that are really thick if you were near a well. We were working on a location before they drilled, before they even brought the rig in. Nothing is out there. That means regular clothes. We have the company we're working for's safety manager pull up on us and demand we put on our FRs. The flame-resistant clothing from earlier. Mind you, we're in the middle of nowhere with nothing around us, just land. I explained that, but he wasn't having it. So, due to safety concerns, we take a 15-minute break every 5 minutes of work. What was a couple of hours job took a couple days. I made sure and got the safety guy's signature, but after the second day, he got real nervous and asked what was taking so long. I told him we couldn't be too safe. I then asked him to monitor our urine to make sure we were hydrated. Didn't want to get dehydrated. He balked at that. When the company man got the bill for the setup, he lost his crap. I got to see the safety guy get berated, and they explained how dumb he was. The rules were then changed to include FRs only around well sites. I have another run-in with the same guy demanding a Tyvek suit when refueling equipment. That's a painter's overall suit that doesn't breathe at all. Mind you, diesel won't catch fire without a lot of help. Its flashpoint is super high. We agreed that safety must come first. So, in the same heat, we charged $500 an hour and took the same breaks because that was really hot as crap. I paid the guy doing it $85 an hour for his troubles. We got about 45 minutes in before that rule got changed as well. Guy that worked for me was ticked he didn't get more hours doing that. Point to this is, you have to use your brain when thinking about safety. So my take on this is, to be fair, I'll never fault anybody for wanting to be overly cautious and overly safe, especially if their title is the safety manager or I'm the guy that has all the liability in this company. But yeah, you gotta know your limits. You can't just wrap them in bubble wrap at every chance you can and cost the company a whole ton of money because, well, they won't get hurt if they're just always wrapped up. Seven Grendel commented, when I was in the field, forestry, we had a couple of guys like that. We used to call it safety theater, and it's always thought up by some office worker who's never done the job and doesn't really understand what it entails trying to make things safer. Our next story is kitchen duty. This is starting to be a long time ago now. I was working on IT support for a municipality, traveling around and fixing incidents and fulfilling requests. My team was at the office a varying amount, but I would say 80 to 90% traveling between tasks. As many who work in offices probably have experience from, the kitchen is always a mess. coffee cups and plates just laying around. We had even bought an industrial dishwasher, either easy-to-load trays, one for plates, one for bowls, and one for cups and glasses. But people are stupid/lazy and put things on the bench or in the wrong tray. So a genius found out that we need a rotating kitchen duty plan, so everyone has one day where they are responsible for the kitchen. This wasn't a kitchen for making food, so it was basically just a coffee machine, fridge, and microwave. The list came out, and I saw my team on the list, so I immediately contact the ones responsible and explain that my team is traveling most of the day. We are rarely at the office and usually grab a lunch while traveling, so we shouldn't be on the list. They reply that everyone will be on the list. So again, raise the issue that we're not at the office. And I get a reply saying that we'll just have to come to the office to take our responsibility. Here, my malicious compliance kicks in. My day comes up. So I go to the office, turn on an audiobook, and take my place in the kitchen. Whenever someone came into the kitchen to place something on the counter, I would make a noise pointing to the trays. If they put it wrong, I would point to the picture of where to place the thing. I did this for 7 hours that day. I got some questions about my workload, in which I replied that I had a lot to do, but I had kitchen duty, so I wouldn't be able to go out to any of the incidents. After the second time I did this and the big boss asked questions, the list was finally changed and my team was removed. The person responsible for the list still thought it was unfair that we didn't have to do kitchen duty. There's just some special kind of workplace geniuses on these stories today. Listen, guy/gal, everybody's gotta do dish duty. Well, can you set up a webcam or something then so I can call in from, doing my remote job? DHRD Licka commented, LOL, I had that in college, off-campus living. I worked at a pizza place and mostly lived with a girlfriend. On one of the rare occasions that I came back to the apartment, they told me it was my turn to do the overflowing dishes. I just said that there's not a single one there that's mine. Finally, the poor girlfriend of one of the others did it because she couldn't stand it anymore. Our next story is, they may take our shorts, but they'll never take our freedom. This happened a few years ago and our compliance wasn't exactly malicious, but I thought I would share. We had a new CIO take over our IT group. They had next to no experience or competence and weren't even a finalist from the selection committee, but were a friend of the CEO and were hired. What they lacked in these areas, they countered with micromanagement and the demand for absolute professionalism, superficial BS, if you will. One of the first policies they implemented was no shorts, and attire must be office appropriate. No holes, no graphic t-shirts, etc. Effectively business casual, especially for supervisors. Now, there were various positions in IT, but several of us, who were also supervisors, had to work in dirty or unconditioned spaces, etc. Several of us made requests to wear shorts. Installing new cabling in the floor of the server room, unloading or installing equipment, wiring buildings in the summer that had no or low AC, etc. All were denied. When walking out of a meeting to discuss this, we noticed that the CIO's secretary and several of the female office support staff were wearing skirts or skirts. We brought this up at our next meeting and were assured that this was different for reasons. Obviously, the women in our group were not about to wear skirts while ITing about, but several started wearing skirts. Later, I, male, was looking through my ThinkGeek wish list. Told you this was a few years ago, and at some point I had placed a utilikilt in the list. Dear reader, I mashed that buy button so fast that the kilt dang near arrived the next day. I also shared this with a few of my closest male coworkers who did the same. Early the following week, we all show up in our kilts, and our coworkers had a good laugh, as did our manager, a good egg, trying to make the best of the CIO's eccentricities, who said nothing to the CIO. It just so happened that on that day, a Windows update had borked the CIO's computer, and they needed someone to take a look ASAP. While not my job, I eagerly volunteered as I was in between tasks. I showed up in my kilt with the CIO present, who just sort of stared as I worked, fixed their computer in a very professional and expedient manner, and left. Shortly thereafter, I get a message from my manager that we needed to talk. Long story short, while he was sympathetic, I was in violation of the no shorts policy. I said that if women can wear skirts, we should be able to as well. Full disclosure, I was the only person with a very specific, hard-to-come-by skill set, so I was fairly secure in my position and was happy to take one for the team, as there'd likely be little consequence for me, personally. Anyway, while we didn't go crazy with the kilts, we made a point of wearing them when we had some visibility outside of IT, which caused a lot of discussion from other departments, from laughing to good-natured ribbing to solidarity. A short time later, we had an all-hands meeting. The policy was being amended so that managers could make exceptions. For example, when we needed to do building infrastructure maintenance, etc., and that from now on, Fridays would be casual day. Still no shorts, but more relaxed clothing. I honestly think they had seen this on Office Space. The mutual understanding, though, was that in return, we needed to retire the kilts. Which we did, for the most part. Yeah, no, the problem here I have is OP said they retired the kilts for the most part. What does that mean, for the most part? Was OP with their supposed job security and their hard-to-come-by role like, yeah, I feel like forcing the manager to give me an exception today, I'm gonna bring my kilt on in. Or when it's like an especially hot and muggy day, they're like, yeah, you know what, I need a little extra breeze down there. Throwaway commented, having had to crawl around under dusty desks to install and replace PCs in a suit and tie, I have never understood the mindset of, you have to look good while doing things that everybody else in the office would absolutely refuse to do while wearing anything nicer than scrubs. Our next story is, you want me in 3 places at once? You got it. A little over a decade ago, I worked up in the oil patch in northern Canada on different IT contracts. The current contract I was on was maintaining virtual meeting rooms. The oil company had decided that if you didn't need to be on site, they would move your job south and pay you 25 to 50% less. When you needed to meet with people on site, you would book a meeting, and all is golden. The IT company I was with was amazing, but they lost the contract to an international IT company, A, servicing oil company B. I was one of the fortunate few that got a job with IT company A, which was so unbelievably stupid. Most of the rest of the talent that had been working IT under contracting companies for 10 plus years took a walk. I think the management literally sat down and said, what's the absolute worst way we can mess things up? And then they did that. They hired a bunch of fresh out of college or unqualified people, and within a few months, our ticket count had gone from averaging around 50 at any given time to well over 600 and growing with no end in sight. This is all well and good, and we got chewed out for the ticket count being high. We got chewed out for bringing it down low because our ticket closure rates weren't similar. It didn't really matter. Good, bad, we got chewed out. Company A was hemorrhaging money to Company B. Like every ticket outside of the allowed failures that was a failure and not resolved was a fine, and there were multiple sites. Basically, IT Company A ended up paying Oil Company B to do IT for them. Most salaried oil company employees who had computer problems took weeks or months to get problems solved, but they were salaried and it didn't affect oil coming out of the ground, so it didn't matter. Except for the meeting rooms. Managers couldn't have virtual meetings with staff, things were getting delayed, and it was going to affect oil coming out of the ground, so it was a problem. The 12 of us working there were given full-time work and 6 vehicles. The supervisor took one for himself for driving to and from town and wouldn't let anyone use it during the day, so that left 5 vehicles. It used to be that we were dedicated to a specific type of work, but now everyone did everything and we were expected to just check the meeting rooms as we drove by or if we had a ticket in that building. So all the meeting room maintenance was just not being done, and the new guys that would get a ticket to facilitate a virtual meeting of the vice presidents, directors, etc. of the oil company would just not show up and the meeting would fail. During this time, I had been loudly and constantly complaining about our inability to check meeting rooms in buildings that we don't have tickets for when we don't have a vehicle to get there anyways. A coworker told me that one of the IT company A's managers had come north to review the situation, was at lunch, saw one of my emails, said, "I'm not reading that," tossed down his phone and ate his lunch. So I just gave in, and did what I was told. I had been busting my butt to keep everything working for all the execs of Oil Company B for months, and it was time to cue malicious compliance. There was a building in town with meeting rooms. Our building on site was around 45 minutes north. Every morning, rather than being on site and working at 7, I would be at the town building at 8, checking a meeting room, stocking with supplies, and fixing problems. Except I wasn't, because it was in use and I couldn't get in. So I would drive north and get to our building around 9 and start my day, do a few tickets, be one of the only ones that the oil exec saw that could actually make meetings run successfully, and then leave at 2 to go check a meeting room I couldn't get into, and then go home. This lasted about a month before the oil execs called in my supervisor, manager, and manager's manager and said something along the lines of, "Put OP on doing just meeting rooms and meetings." I got called into a meeting with my supervisor. Most of my other work was taken away. I was given my own vehicle and I was told to check all the meeting rooms every week, a 4-person job, and to take care of all of the exec meetings. I told my supervisor that it wasn't physically possible for me to be in 3 or 4 places at once to check all the meeting rooms. He didn't care. He didn't care how I did it, just get it done. So I got it done. Every time we checked a meeting room, we had to scan a QR code with a company phone that we would then export into Excel and submit as the rooms we checked. Every minute of every day, I clicked the scan button and scanned nothing. At the end of the week, I would export to Excel, then get the list of all the room codes, randomize them, paste them in, save, and submit. Click, I'm in town checking a room. 1 minute later, click, I'm 30 kilometers north. 1 minute later, click, I'm 70 kilometers across the river, etc. I breezed through the rest of my stay there, attending exec meetings and keeping them happy, starting late and ending early with my own dedicated vehicle. I applied for a new job, was approved, and just had to wait on the background check. My start date was given at about 6 months out, and I was set. I planned a 3-week vacation at IT Company A months in advance, and then on my last day before vacation, I handed in my 3 weeks notice and left. I had made good friends there. I kept getting invited to the social events for some time, and my understanding from the new people is that they ended up hiring more people, had put 4 people on meeting rooms, and still couldn't get the work done because no one ever bothered to learn it. Eventually, the IT company lost the contract. When companies make such massive internal blunders like this, it kind of makes me wonder, what is the end game here? Is it something like the people at the top that are making these decisions and hiring the people that are worth way less money and ultimately ruining the reputation and ability to do the job of the company, skimming off and saving that money to try to get a bonus of their own or funnel what was going to other employees to them or something? I mean, it led to the complete implosion of this company. Was it just being dumb, not being a very good manager or CEO or anything? They sure did have a lot of meetings. I wonder what they were actually talking about. Our next story is, I quit smoking, but my buddy kept offering me cigarettes. As the title says, I decided to quit smoking. This happened about 30 years ago, and my best friend at the time, let's call him John, because that's his name, was clearly jealous about the fact that I could quit and he couldn't. So, he kept offering me cigarettes. Every time he'd light up a smoke, he would offer the pack to me, saying, "Want one?" along with a smug little smile. One day, we're standing on his balcony and he pulls out his deck of smokes. As per routine, he gives me a little smug smile and offers me a smoke. This time I say yes and take one. His eyebrows lift in surprise, but he reaches into his pocket to grab his lighter. As he hands it to me, I begin tearing the cigarette up, tiny piece by piece, and sprinkling the shredded cigarette off the edge of his balcony. "What the heck?" he says, annoyed. "I thought you said you wanted a smoke." I replied, "I did. This is just what I do with them now. By all means, keep offering." He never offered me a smoke again. Yeah, no, I just love the message and the simplicity of this story. Nothing crazy, not a world-beating story or anything, but just a really effective, small, malicious compliance. And honestly, OP could have made an even bigger show of it. They could have walked back inside, took it to the dish disposal and dropped it in. Shoot, OP could have hammed it up and just dropped it on the ground and started stomping on it or something. Delta New 1142 commented, "I was expecting a casual toss off the balcony followed by, 'That was great, can I have another one?' But I like yours too." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.